All right, all right, all right. What's up, folks? How are we doing? How are we doing on this Monday night? Man, getting in from a good ass run earlier, man. Real good running, but shins lightweight, hurt, but feeling good. Let's get into MK Ultra. Now, MK Ultra is a program that I always hear people use. I never hear anyone break it down. I'm always lost just based off what other people describe MK Ultra as being. And like I say, a lot of people are, dug into these rabbit holes, conspiracies, and all this other stuff that they just run wild once information like this is leaked to them, or once they begin to discover this type of information. They just go every which way with it. Some people think that they're currently involved in these type of studies being conducted on them. Uh, and the list just goes on and on. So I want to dive into it because I'm never hearing people fully explain it. I was listening to the interview earlier with for the last draw. I was listening to the interview with Kevin McCall on Back on Fig, and he was speaking because he's dealing with some derangements as well, like with his mental state. As many people who come up with the claims of being part of MK Ultra deal with mental derangements. And so I'm like, let me go ahead and dive into this as a topic and speak on this because I heard stuff loosely based on MK Ultra and MK Ultra being a program from long ass time ago. And when I go to pull up just basic research on it, I see it's a program that begins in the 1950s. So it's something that begins with the start of the Korean War, so the war that follows World War II. So I want to dive into this one, take a look into it, see what was being done, to listen to some interviews, two interviews from two different guests brought on by Joe Rogan, listening to their stories and about the experiments from this program and what these programs are being used for, as to use for some kind of a counter intelligence, counter uh, uh, assassination type programs, to see what they can affect the brainwashing of people into getting them to commit certain acts, intentional acts, deliberate acts to take care of things and kind of stay on the black side of things, stay co-op from shit. But let's go into this one, MK Ultra. And so this is an illegal human experiment program designed and undertaken by the US CIA, our Central Intelligence Agency, to develop procedures and identify drugs that could be used during interrogation to weaken individuals and force confessions through brainwashing and psychological torture. So this is basically what the program was used for. It's no different. You kind of seen or heard some of that leaked out with what was going on in Guantanamo Bay with some of the torture methods and methods to try to gain confessions from people, things that have been uh, legalized by Congress. I think it's legalized by only not our Constitution, but I think Congress has outlawed some of the interrogation texts that many of the special forces use in war situations. I think even in law enforcement, you can't use that shit. Brandon Washington in the building, salute my brother Brandon. And then Boycott in the building, just talking to my brother Brandon. He wanted to jump on this topic, but I was like, I'm gonna just keep this as just going over the topic. Like I said, I don't go into the rabbit hole stuff. I ain't in the conspiracy stuff. I want to read it straight up from what's brought up from the documents. I wanted to pull up the actual document, but it's too much to look through. I think it's a 900-page document. I don't mind. I like using Wikipedia because it summarizes, breaks down a lot of this information. And even covering this on Wikipedia, this is still a very long ass subject. Very, very, very long subject here, even from the Wikipedia standpoint. Now, there was two names that I heard when going into this one. Was this Sidney Gottlieb, and there was another guy out of UCLA. There's these two. I think it's Richard Helms, who's the former CIA director, was this guy. So I'll look into these two dudes, want to tap into them and the experiments that are being conducted. But as we see, this is just an experiment for brainwashing and for psychological torture to get people to confess. waterboarding, all that other type of shit. And who knows what was being conducted on people back in the damn 70s and stuff. Hell, let alone law enforcement officials go in there, beat you for hours, and get you to confess to some shit you didn't do. MK Ultra says the CIA says a CIA cryptonym. MK says in a what is that is an arbitrary prefix standing for Office of Technical Service, and Ultra is an arbitrary word out of a dictionary used to name this project. The program has been widely condemned as a violation of individual rights and an example of the CIA's abuse of power, with critics highlighting its disregard for consent and its coercive impact on domestic principles. Because I was looking at the interview on Joe Rogan's show with the two people who kind of knowledgeable in the topic, where they were speaking about some of the research that the UCLA professor was conducting out there in Old Ashbury or whatever it was, and speaking about they think that even Charles Manson may have been part of these experiments. So they bring people in, give them LSD, get them hooked on these drugs, and study the effects or the impacts of the use of these drugs and see what you can program people into doing. Same thing, they were talking about some studies they were doing at Harvard and other universities, but I think Harvard was the main one, that Ted Kaczynski ended up having some, hypnotist type bullshit being done on him. And, some people going down that hole of stating that that program that he was in may have had an effect on him going around bombing folks. Steph in the building, salute. He says, be well, says salute to the chat, says who's in tonight. And then let me see, let's continue on. All right, let me get this pulled back up. Says Project MK Ultra began in 1953 and was halted in 1973. So this had a 20-year run. MK Ultra says used numerous methods to manipulate its subjects' mental state and brain functions, such as the covert administrations of high dose of psychoactive drugs, especially LSD. Let's tap into LSD real quick. So this is how you say this? Larcigic acid diet. It's a medical word. LSD. Y'all see it on there. Slang words: acid, Lucy. All right. So it is a semi-synthetic hallucinogenic drug. Says derived from ergot. Says known for its powerful psychological effects and its serotonin. Says what is that? Serotonin tonergic activity. So what is this word? Serotonergic is a monoamine neurotransmitter, says with a wide range of functions in both the central nervous system and also the peripheral tissues. It is says it is involved in mood, cognition, reward, learning, memory, and psychological process. It's just crazy with what they do with these drugs. These people that research and study this shit. Says it was historically used as a psychiatric. Says it was historically used in psychiatry. Says in the 1960 counterculture. Said it is currently legally restricted. Says but experiencing renewed scientific interest and increasing use. See, I thought LSD was something that was used by Nazis and shit. Wasn't there some experiment being used by Hitler and them? Swiss chemist Albert Hofmann says first synthesized LSD in 1938 and discovered its powerful psychedelic effects in 1943 after an accidental ingestion. Says it became widely studied in the 1950s and 60s, and then it migrates out to the streets and these foods start selling it. Says it was used experimentally in psychiatry, says for treating alcoholism and schizophrenia. Now, let me see, though they bring something up with the Nazis, and then I'll go back. Because I think I remember hearing something about them experiment on this with Nazi soldiers in the field, that there was some kind of drug they were using for that. Let me see. All right, let me go back. Let me go out of this one. So that's what LSD says. LSD and other chemicals without the subject's consent. Additionally, other methods beyond chemical compounds were used, including electroshock. I think that's what Ted Kaczynski went through. For those who don't remember Ted Kaczynski, that's the Unabomber. says in hypnosis. Sensory deprivation says, remember sensory deprivation? I think will be something like if you ever watched the movie Clockwork Orange and they did that shit with the dude where they keep him holding his eyelids on and have him just sitting there watching television, and they used it. Matter of fact, that's exactly what that part of Clockwork Orange was, because this dude was like a rebel, a murderous thug, and doing all this other stuff, and then this dude just turned to where they just weeded all his his damn instincts of just being vicious and violent and shit. All that shit was weeded out. And but the crazy part, when he's a super violent dude, his soundtrack for violence was like some Beethoven symphony number 8 or whatever Beethoven sound it was. He'd be out there committing crime and shit, listening to Beethoven. Go off to these lounges and they banging Beethoven and shit like it's the hottest new mixtape release. The a 5 mic rap album and shit. They listen to Beethoven. Clockwork Orange is an ill ass movie. All right, so continue on. So sensory deprivation, isolation, verbal and sexual abuse, and other forms of torture. So, and I think these people volunteered to be part of these programs. So it wasn't like they just snatching people off the streets and bringing them in and say, we're MK Ultra in your ass. So they'll go in there thinking they taking drugs, not knowing they're having these studies being done on them, or how the hell they convince people to go into it. So maybe something similar to how the Tuskegee program ran with the syphilis experiment on black folks. But MK Ultra was used on a lot of white folks, so this ain't really just a black thing. So Project MK Ultra says was preceded by Project Artichoke. So let's go into Artichoke. Project Artichoke probably is what started during Vietnam. Project Artichoke says the project developed and enacted by the U.S. CIA, says for the purpose of researching methods of interrogation. Project Artichoke, so this is when they capture Korean soldiers. I guess this is going to be the method. They want to study on Americans they don't give a fuck about. Project Artichoke says was succeeded by Project MK Ultra, which began in 1953. Initially known as Project Bluebird, Project Artichoke officially arose on August 20th, 1951, says and was operated by the CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence. The primary goal of Project Artichoke says was to determine whether a person could be involuntarily made to perform an act of attempted assassination. The project also studied the effects of mind control and hypnosis, forced addiction to, and subsequent withdrawal from morphine and other chemicals, including LSD, to produce amnesia, says in other vulnerable states and victims. Because they were, and that's the other thing they were bringing up about them using the LSD and all these other drugs for amnesia, was for soldiers or any person, if they were to have them to commit some type of assassination or something, they can wipe away their memory and have them to forget what type of acts they committed, and for the CIA to wash their hands of them, like we never existed. Had this person never leak out any information, like they were part of this program, reveal secrets and all that other stuff, their memories are wiped out. Maybe they get shot down over behind enemy lines, they pop the capsule of LSD, wipe their memories free. All right, so Jay Finley says good job, says not letting Brandon Washington, says ruin the show with his nonsense. He says, no, sir, says you got to read those words, says Mr. Reed and Rambo. No, I'm not a doctor, so I know them words they have for these drugs. These fools probably were taught how to announce them words by whoever was lecturing them for that shit. Jay Finley says, "Oh, so this is going to be good." So this Ninja Reggie says, struggle reading 15 minutes in." Nah, never struggle reading. Some words is difficult, so I ain't gonna never put that past anything. And then Jay Philly says, no, says Reggie says, what is LSD? Says, read it. That shit don't work over here on me. And then he says says the national did a lot, or the nation, he meant. The nation did a lot of experiments. Behold, in the bill of salute the L file player, he says they tested the pain twins feel too. Says if the other was harmed, says sick stuff. Says national, not nationals. Says the national did. You mean the nation, bro? And then he says you make crazy assumptions. Says even with Google right there at your fingertips, you can't even spell fingers, bro. Learn to write. Says my ultra says was not voluntary. Says they tested on inmates and mental patients. Says CIA says also those civilians without their knowledge. But they get into it. They didn't, and see, some people go overboard with this shit. Ain't like they did this on every goddamn citizen of America. So people going overboard. Wasn't hundreds of people. Same thing with the Tuskegee experiment. Wasn't even hundreds of people they did that shit on. All right, so let me see. What am I on? The Project Artichoke. So says the primary goal of artichoke says to determine whether a person can be violent, says could be involuntary made to perform an act of attempted assassination. Says the project also studied the effects of mind control, hypnosis, forced addiction, to morphine, says and other chemicals, including LSD, to produce amnesia, says and other vulnerable states and victims. So description artichoke was a mind control program, says that gathered information together with the intelligence division of the Army, Navy, Air Force, and FBI. In addition, the scope of the project was outlined in a memo dated January 1952 that asks, can we get control of an individual to the point where he will be our bidding, says that he would do our bidding against his will and even against fundamental laws of nature, such as self preservation. Project Artichoke was the CIA's secret code name for carrying out in house and overseas experiments using LSD, hypnosis, and total isolation as forms of psychological harassment for special interrogation on says on human subjects. See, the isolation shit could be what's experimented with, like the whole type programs in prison, placing people into the hole in prison, that kind of shit. There's always this push for like organized people belong to organizations to get them to debrief, break away from that, reveal intelligence in it. Says the subjects who left this project says were fogged with amnesia, says resulting in faulty and vague memories of the experiment. In 1952, says unknowing CIA agents were secretly drugged to determine the drug's effects on unsuspecting people. Our records state that an agent was kept on the LSD for 77 days. See, they even did it to their own people. And that's the scientists doing this shit. That's the scientists doing that shit. That's the ill levels of where science goes. These scientists, these glasses wearing motherfuckers. Artichoke research the potential of what is that? The potential of Dengue fever. Oh, let me get this word in here. Let me get the pronunciation on this word. And this is a tropical disease caused by. Hold on, let me get the pronunciation on that word. Yeah, don't let them want to pronounce it for me. All right, how you say that? Dengue? How you pronounce this word? Well, whatever it is, it's what it is. So let me get into what this actual disease is, if it does break it down. So it's a fever. Says what is that? Dengue fever is a mosquito-borne illness that occurs in tropical and subtropical areas of the world. Mild dengue fever causes high fever and flu-like symptoms. The severe form of dengue fever says also called dengue. What is that? Hemorrhagic fever says can cause serious bleeding. Says sudden drop in blood pressure and death. Damn. All right, let me continue on. Let me see. Says in other diseases, a declassified artichoke memo says that not all virus have to be lethal. Says the objective includes those that act as short term and long term incapacitating agents. The CIA disputed which department would take over the operation. Finally, it was decided that an agent from the CIA's research staff, former U.S. Army Brigadier General Paul F. Gaynor, says would oversee it. The CIA sought to establish control over what it perceived as the weaker and less intelligent segment of society, or for potential agents, defectors, refugees, prisoners of war, and others. A CIA report states that if hypnosis succeeded, assassins could be created to assassinate. A prominent politician, or they redacted the name of this politician, says, are, if necessary, an American official. The overseas operation took place in locations throughout Europe, Japan, Southeast Asia, and the Philippines. Teams were assembled to manage these operations, and they were told to conduct at the overseas bases operational experiments utilizing aliens as subjects, so meaning them foreigners over there are the natives in their own land. So that's what Artichoke was. Continuing on, and let's see, it says it was organized in the Office of Scientific Intelligence and coordinated by U.S. Army's Biological Warfare Laboratories. So these fools is ill with this, with the level they go about trying to kill people and to advance their goals of world domination and shit. Says the program engaged in illegal activities, including the use of U.S. and Canadian citizens as unwitting test subjects. MK Ultra's scope was broad, with activities carried out under the guise of research at more than 80 institutions aside from the military, including colleges and universities, hospitals, prisons, and pharmaceutical companies. The CIA operated using front organizations, although some top officials at these institutions were aware of the CIA's involvement. Don't be letting them put shit in you. Project MK Ultra was revealed to the public in 1975 by the Church Committee, named after Senator Frank Church, and the United States Congress and Gerald Ford's United States President's Commission on CIA Activities within the United States, the Rockefeller Commission. I'm going to go into a brief of what those are. Investigative efforts were hampered by CIA Director Robert Helms' order that all MK Ultra files be destroyed in 1973. The Church Committee and the Rockefeller Commission investigation relied on the sworn testimony of direct participants and on the small number of documents that survived Helms' order. Did Helms go to jail? That's why I'm gonna go back and look at that. It says in 1977, says the federal in 1977, a Freedom of Information Act request uncovered a cache of 20,000 documents related to MK Ultra, which led to Senate hearings. Some surviving information about MK Ultra was declassified in 2001. Let's see what they did to Robert Helm for destroying these documents. And that's the other side of shit. It's some real piece of shit ass people. So this is probably the guy that ended up taking over after the death of what's that scumbag? What's that scumbag who led the CIA? I mean, no, I'm tripping. That's the FBI. I'm tripping. I'm thinking about J. Edgar Hoover. This guy's over the CIA. So he's an American government official, intelligence officer, and diplomat who served as director of the CIA from 66 to 1973. So they must have booed his ass. Oh no, he didn't get booted. And then he went to United States ambassador to Iran from 73. He's the one who led to Iran, where Iran don't give a fuck about America. He was probably over there doing bullshit. So let's see. So he doesn't lose his job after destroying these documents. They end up getting this for another government job. These got real piece of shit ass people in this government, but it's based on who y'all put in here, who y'all voting for. Let me see. Is this it? Says after leaving public office, Helms was subject to scrutiny for his tenure at the CIA during a period of growing distrust of American intelligence agencies. Helms was a key witness in the Church Committee's investigation to the CIA during the mid 1970s, says, but the investigation was hampered severely by Helms' 1973 order to destroy all files related to the MK Ultra program. 1977, as a result of earlier covert operations in Chile, Helm became the only DCI convicted of misleading Congress. Oh, good. So they put his whole ass in prison. Let me see. That's what I came over to look up on him. Let's see. But I can already guess. Hold on, let me go over here. I can already guess somebody commuted his goddamn sentence. Let's see. Can already guess somebody done commuted this whole. All right, let me go conviction. There we go. So the Watergate scandal, which implicated public scrutiny and convictions. which implicated E. Howard Hunt and several other former CIA assets and the Nixon administration's effort to use state secret privilege in the cover up, intensified public attitudes against abuse of state secrecy. And multiple public investigations were opened into the American intelligence community. In addition to Watergate revelations about apparent distortions and dishonesty regarding the progress of the war in Vietnam gravely eroded America's public trust in government. Remember all that stuff falling out from Vietnam and stuff. So let me bypass. Says, including the Watergate Committee, Helms testified 13 times before various official bodies of investigation between 1973 and 1977. So Helms a crooked ass motherfucker to begin with. In addition to the special committee and the Rockefeller Commission, Helms testified before the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, Senate Committee of Armed Forces, blah, 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 blah. Say he defended the use of secrecy as an essential utilitarian value of to the government necessary to conduct espionage and covert operations. Helms expressed dismay over the publications and investigations themselves, especially when they resulted in the publication of sensitive, classified information. He's a piece of shit. Ain't nothing should be classified about none of these documents. And the fact that you have people unwillingly being experimented on, and this fool has the audacity to use terminology like this, that he's in dismay over the publication or the publication investigations themselves. At points during the many hours of testimony given by Helms before Congress, his frustration and irritation with the direction of the proceedings are clearly discernible. Says in 1975, Richard Welch, the CIA stations chief in Athens, who had been exposed by classified leaks, was murdered. Wow. And they getting down dirty, homie. Knocking their own people off. This assassination led to the passage of intelligence. Let's see. So Helms had him knocked off. Helms definitely did something with this. Before testifying, Helms and John McCone were informed by, let me see. Let me see if they're going to show some of him. So this fool, these what crooks look like. Says were informed by a CIA officer regarding the contours of congressional knowledge. According to author Thomas Powers, both McCone and Helms thus tailored their testimony to limit the scope of discussion to matters already known by the committee. Helms' testimony, which made headlines, amounted to a circumspect professional defense of the agency. However, his testimony was contradicted by that of DCI William Colby, says before Congress. Conviction for lying. Let me go into this. I don't want to read all of this. What did they give this fool? So let me see. In 1977, since he was prosecuted by the Department of Justice for misleading Congress, Helms pled nolo contendere, says to two lesser misdemeanor charges that he had not fully, completely, and accurately testified to Congress, and he was sentenced to 2 years suspended. The fuck out of here. These motherfuckers in this country ain't shit and got the audacity to talk about law and order. Well, we had some cold motherfuckers in this motherfucker. That's why these rich people do this fuck shit. That's why you keep yourself away from drugs. So let's see, suspended sentence and a fine $2,000. At sentencing, Judge Barrington D. Parker says, "Condemn, fuck your condemning. You ain't do shit to the motherfucker, but let him walk free." Let me see. Then I mean, the next fool should go out and do the same shit. That's what they do in this current administration. This current administration doing the same shit. Let's see, because his testimony had been given at a time when politicians generally excuse CIA secrecy, Helms supporters claimed that he was unfairly held to a double standard. It sounds similar to the language that Trump has used in freeing that guy. What's that dude he just released? That Congress dude? Talking about he's the first guy to ever try like that. He held to a double standard, so he commuted his sentence. Says he received the standing ovation at a large gathering of CIA officers and what is that? Beshida, how you say this word? Best. Fuck, I can't say that word. Maryland says, and the officers raised funds to pay his fine. Says he continued to receive support within the CIA the following years. Damn. So how? Let me see how this fool died. Hope he died fucked up. He's a piece of shit. Says after returning home from Tehran, Hans founded a consulting company on K Street called Shafir. So the Persian word for ambassador. Let me get the fuck out of here. How did this fool end up leaving this planet? So Richard Helms died at 89. He died old. It says multiple myeloma. Says on October 2002. Says he was interned in Arlington as a cemetery. Oh, this piece of shit. Damn, man, that's some cold shit. So they ain't do a damn thing to him. So let me see. They ain't do a damn thing to this hoe. Yeah, what a waste. What a goddamn waste. And let me see. Is this Richard Helms story I'm still on? Yeah, still on him. Let me back that up. Damn, they ain't do a damn thing. So you have Frank Church, and this is another politician. Sorry ass motherfuckers. Ain't gonna do shit. So this who this whole ass dude is. Let's see. Is he still alive? Oh no, he kicked the bucket a long time ago. He's a hoe. And you have Rockefeller Commission. So this is the Rockefeller here. Another piece of shit. This family just so tied into all type of shit. He's vice president. So I didn't even know that to Gerald Ford. So this white Ford and them was such pieces of shit. You brought one of these Rockefeller clowns into him. So he's part of the the wealthy Rockefeller family. The governor of New York. I think he was one. I think he's the guy who is part of the reason they pushed ahead with the building of the World Trade Center and shit. You know, their wealth carries them a long way. You know, wealthy folks in politics carry them a long way. And because of, most ignorant citizens love to vote for wealthy people to try to run this country. And these wealthy people are sitting back here doing all sorts of damn ill ass shit. So the origins of the project says during the early, I wouldn't be surprised if MK Ultra projects weren't being headed by fucking Nazi officials that America brought over here after the war. So we go into the origins of this project, and they bring up with the Nazis. So I guarantee this shit had some kind of correlation, and them bringing not just Van Braun scientists, but other bullshit ass Nazi doctors and scientists to come over here and run this shit. And then how we'll go into wars and committing these sort of sins on the battlefield and experiments on people. This is what I think this is World War II becomes a major turning point inside of America when it comes to the way in which this country goes about its dealings with black folks, and then as well as the uses of these drugs and then the widespread use of drugs. Because when you listen to people talk and you hear like older people talk, you don't hear in conversations or when you watch things, you see with old films address a lot of shit. That's the thing. Go back and watch black and white films. Just go through a timeline in film watching. And what you don't see highlighted in films, go pre-World War II. And then you go into post-World War II. And for a while, you really don't see it, but you start to see drugs start to make their way in this country not long after that. You see, alcoholism wasn't really too much of a thing, even though they start to outlaw alcohol. Remember, there was a time where alcohol was illegal. And then, the immigrants of society began to show their asses as they start bootlegging and running their little underground distribution of alcohol and continue the flow of alcohol. And then I think I hear that's where NASCAR kind of gets its start, because a lot of those drivers were kind of the bootleggers, the people that ran that shit from different county lines and all that shit. So you don't really see much drug involvement in shit. You probably had people on heroin, but it wasn't widely distributed. It was probably amongst people of higher income who drug use was amongst people of a wealthier class and shit. It wasn't this low level thing like where it hit the streets and into some of the lower sections of society. It was kind of a controlled thing. And then as you like, if you look through these time periods, you start going after World War II, you begin to see how things begin to change for black folks as black folks go through their movements up in society. And then you start seeing as, Nazis begin to find their new footprint here in America and thriving in this shit and enacting what they attempted, well, they were successful in enacting on Jews over in fucking Germany. And then they get here and they help whites in America enact it on black folks and the rest of fucking society. So let's go into the parts that Nazis plays, because even sticking with the movie thing. So as you go on with movies, you just see they barely touch on alcoholism was an issue. I watch old movies and they speak on shit like dieting and that shit. Drinking was a thing. It was still viewed as a classy type of thing. You didn't see that strung out looking shit. And you don't really see these changes in things until you start seeing like black exploitation films. And kind of conditions in black communities have always been dire, just mainly poverty and shit, and a little bit of the drugs. You still don't see even black exploitations this heavy thing about drugs, just dealing with pimping, poverty, crime, and shit. So more the prostitution, the crime shit, the alcoholism, unemployment, and things like that, and everything else that comes with being in poverty. But none of this many strung out ass people. And then these fools start to effectively use drugs by placing them all through the community. So the origins of the project says during the early 1940s. See, this is why I like to read shit. I don't like diving in rabbit holes on shit and then coming up with conspiracies and all that bullshit. It is what it is. It's what scientists' intentions was in these programs. It's what it is. Says during the early 1940s, Nazi scientists says working in the concentration camps of Auschwitz and how do you say this one? Dachau says during World War II conducted interrogation experiments on human subjects, being Jews. Substances such as barbiturates, morphine derivatives, and hallucinogens such as mescaline. Says mescalines. What is that? Mescalines. Here goes the scientific breakdown. Let's see, is a naturally occurring psychedelic protoalkaloid. How you say that? Says of the substitute. Damn, these scientific words. Ain't gonna pronounce that word. Class is found in cacti glide peyote. Says on San Pedro, and known for its what is that? Serotonergic allergenic effects. Hallucinogenic effects. Sorry about that. Y'all can go read that on your own. Says, wait, where am I at? Hold on. This thing keeps skipping up. So here it is. So the mescaline says were employed in experiments conducted on Polish, Russian, Ukrainian, and other nationalities prisoner of wars. Says the aim of these experiments was to develop a true serum, says which would, in the words of one laboratory assistant the Dutch, to the how do you ever say this word, to the Dachau scientist Kurt Plotner, and I'm gonna pull up Plotner and see if he was brought to America. Says eliminate the will of a person, examine. American historian Stephen Kisner, who got same name like one of these Germans, Kinsner said that the CIA project was a continuation of these early Nazis experiments. Bingo. And I'm just going off of just seeing with the path in which this shit just looks so familiar with. It says there's evidence by MK Ultra's use of mescaline on unwitting subjects, replicating previous Nazi experiments conducted at how you say pronounce this concentration camp's name? I never heard this concentration camp name neither. I heard of Auschwitz and all this stuff. So let's go on Kurt Plotner and let's see what happened to him. Did America get him or did he end up being taken by? No, he went to America. Oh my God. Let me get a quick drink of the H2O. He went to America. Probably changed his name to Thomas Jefferson or something. Kurt Jefferson or Frederickson. That's what he named. His new name is Kurt Frederickson in America. So Kurt Frederick Plotner, he was born in October 19th, 1905. He dies February 26, 1984, and I'm pretty sure he died here in America. So was a Nazi party member and a medical doctor who conducted human experimentations on Jews and Soviet prisoners of war in German concentration camps. American intelligence recruited him to work in the United States in 1940. What the fuck you recruiting him for? You recruit him. Let's do these experiments on blacks and old hippie whites. Boy, these motherfuckers back in this time in America and even today, but these motherfuckers back here, back then during that World War II time are the worst type of motherfuckers. And we should have did more slaughtering during the Civil War. And had it not been, I'm telling you, and even during, as you look at the end of the Civil War, the assassination of Lincoln like really set shit backwards, bro. I continued on. It says American intelligence recruited him to work for the United States in 1945. He returned to the medical field as a professor at the University of Freiburg in West Germany after working for the United States and living under an alias. He lived under an alias. I told you he changed his name. He was Kurt Fredrickson. Food and food. The boy, this country, you white, you all right. God damn. All right, let me see. It says hired by American, employed at work in the concentration camps. Says work in the concentration camps came to the attention of Boris Posh, and an American intelligence officer says who would go on to work in the CIA at the time of Project Bluebird, which is Artichoke, says in the early 1950s. And the United States Navy intelligence officers recruited him in 1945, permitting him to continue his interrogation research. Though Plotner says tenure work in the United States was allegedly brief, says yeah, it sure was brief. That shit wasn't brief because they burnt the documents to hide that. Many of his experiments would later be used as groundworks for experiments conducted by the CIA during Project MK Ultra. Damn, boy, god damn these funky motherfuckers. Continuing on. So American interest in drugs. So this comes from the Nazis. So damn, good guess. So American interest in drug-related interrogation experiments began in 1943 when the Office of Strategic Service began developing a truth drug, says that will produce uninhibited truthfulness in an interrogated person. In 1947, the United States Navy initiated Project Chatter, says an interrogation program which saw the first testing of LSD on human subjects. See, I was thinking, so no, that's the other thing. See, I was talking about when I was talking about, I thought the Nazis had used LSD. It wasn't. It's this mesaline shit. That's what it is. But see, I think they were using that shit even on their troops. Matter of fact, let me look into that shit right here and see if they put anything about the Nazis using it on soldiers. Let me check on that. Let's see. Boom, boom. It says archaeological evidence from sites in the United States, Mexico, Peru indicate that mescaline containing cacti says also it's cacti, a cactus says have been used for over 6,000 years. Europeans recorded use of peyote says in Native American religious ceremonies upon early contact with the Halicho people in Mexico. So let me see. They be getting high. I have heard about them being high. Let me see. Anything with this boy Hitler using that shit on them people. All right, so no, don't see that. All right, let me back out, get back to the subject at hand. All right, so continuing on. So then, let I read that? Do project. In the 1950s, the CIA says under the direction of General Walter Beding Smith initiated a series of interrogation projects. This is the general, so 3 stars means he's a lieutenant general. Initiated a series of interrogations. But yeah, is he? Yeah, yeah. I think he's a lieutenant general. Says initiated a series of interrogation projects involving human subjects, beginning with the launch of Project Bluebird, officially renamed Project Artichoke in August 20th, 1951. Directed and overseen by Brigadier General Paul F. Gaynor. Let me see. I picture this punk. These some piece of shit ass people, bro. Said the objective of Archoke was to determine whether an individual could be made to involuntarily perform an act of attempted assassination. Morphine, mescaline, and LSD were all administered on unknowing CIA agents in an attempt to produce amnesia in the subject. In addition, so some people, wicked ass, dumb, retarded motherfuckers, read this shit, be all on drugs, going through crisis in their life, and then start claiming they've been part of MK Ultra and shit. Nah, your mind just fucked up. You twisted. You didn't read this shit and think you part of it. Aims and leadership. So this is the Sidney Gottleblood dude who was part of this shit. So he was an American chemist and spy master who headed the CIA agencies in 1950 and the 1960s, assassination attempt and mind control programs. And this is known as Project OK MK Ultra. He's born out in New York, died. So these fools live long ass lives. Long ass lives. These what these scumbag motherfuckers. Don't ever trust a motherfucker like this. Look like this. Some of y'all be so desperate for money. These people just know that shit and get y'all. Get y'all. Y'all be do anything for a Klondike bar. And let's see. Really don't got to read much on it. So we kind of know the gist of them. Just want to know the players at hand. Know the players at hand. So, like I said, I always hear people just throw out terms. That's why I be like, it's important to really dive into shit because some motherfuckers just throw out terms. It's like name dropping this shit. Just name drop MK Ultra, but can never break shit down. That's why I'm always big on telling people, well, break it down, explain that shit. I think people just throw shit out. They heard about some shit and throw it out. Let me catch back up in the chat because I know y'all dropping shit and I don't want to ignore the chat. It says, someone says, how can you say it wasn't hundreds? Says, where did you get those facts? We don't know if it was hundreds. Don't want to act like it's the whole population and shit. Oh, you talking about when I said it with the Tuskegee experiment. It wasn't hundreds of people. It says in 21 years, says estimated to be 1,000. And he says Canada says was doing it too. Says over 300 families sued the Canadian government. Says MK Ultra experiments was conducted by Dr. Ewan Cameron in Montreal. And then she says dengue what was that dengue, what was that shit virus? No, it wasn't virus. It was dengue disease or something like that. The dengue. Oh, here I still got up on here. Dengue. Hold on, what's that shit? What was that shit? Fever. Sorry about that. Dengue fever. What it was called. And then let's see. Uh, and then Jay Finley says prison hospitals in poverty neighborhoods. And then it says, now usually you're going to do it inside of some institution. So you're going to do it inside of bringing people in unwillingly, coming in for one to get high. Somebody was saying they used to bring these cats into brothels where they think they about to get laid, go in there and meet with the escorts, and they were even using it to where they sprayed it through aerosol and getting these people unwittingly high off of this shit. And then just studying them, observe them, probably watch them through some old Black Mirror shit, observe whatever they doing. And then says wicked motherfuckers in this country. It's the scientific motherfuckers, man. The scientific community. It's the nerds with the glasses and shit. And he says Manchurian Candidate movie says it's based on this. Yeah. Oh yeah, I was hearing that shit. I'm gonna have to look into Manchurian Candidate shit as well. And he says, I think that's something dealing with China or some shit. Or actions over in Asia. Says no, not J. Edgar Hoover. Says Mark Summers says come get your people. It says no surprise. Says he worked under Nixon. And he says talking about him. Says he's definitely a piece of shit. Says he was part of. Damn, you gotta write better, Jay Finley, bro. Says he was a part of the JFK cover up too. He says so. Basically, he says he got off scot free, talking about what they convict this motherfucker. He don't do no time. And then Picasso in there saying, says Santos says was a guy Trump community. Yeah, that fool. George, what's his name? George Santos. And he says, Jeff says NASCAR says they ran moonshine. Says moonshine from the south. Says they met for man. Your writing is horrible, bro. I can't even break down what you're trying to write. Says they met for says the cars. Oh man. to outrun law. Says I guess he's saying something about outrunning law enforcement. Picasso says when someone say you are a piece of shit, says are they saying you are? Says you were pinched off. Says pinched off from a turd. Says and the turd is the parent. Says I never really understood it. Says chicken shit. Says it's watery. Says like diarrhea. Food. Picasso just be throwing out random crazy shit. Sylvester in the building salute says, "What's up?" Says everything good. Yes, indeed. And he says modified cars. He correcting the misspelling. And then he gonna say, "What the fuck?" The Picasso. Picasso always writes some "what the fuck" type comments. On the box it says, "What's happening?" Slim says, "Who you climbing tonight?" Oh, nobody. I'm just talking about this MK Ultra shit. Finally, like dive into this shit after for decades. I've always heard this MK Ultra shit. And the way people use it is like, man, people don't even know what the fuck they talking about. It. People just using it in the whatever conspiracy group they done heard about this shit and this and that. Jay Finley says, shaking my head, says America says sent all those kids over there to war, says only to give sanctuary to Nazis after. Yeah, for real. Some sick shit. It was very sick shit. And then this is the other side they don't even speak about, like with that war, is that how many Americans who are of German descent that left America to go fight in that war, and then you have to where when Nazis are being captured, Americans are seeing motherfuckers they know. It's like hearing him. He can talk proper English. Like what the? Where the hell you from? New York? What you doing over here fighting in this? They went to their parents' motherland. Shit, half of the kids are probably born over there and brought over here. And then, like I say, America is New York. That's what America has been. And he says, Jay Finley even makes black soldiers ride in the rear, says, while white Nazi prisoners says rode up front, says very revealing. That's a fact, bro. It's a fact. Probably that's what welfare systems was created for. Probably brought them over there, brought them over here. That's what probably why our housing projects get built. When is a lot of housing projects built? In the fucking 40s and 50s, right? For a bunch of these people brought from over in these countries. That's why you have with the projects in this country. Projects weren't always a black and Latino thing because of the fact a lot of people don't know fucking history, don't pay attention shit. They only live in the current. That they don't listen to the stories that a lot of our projects in this country, our urban housing developments, were housed a lot of whites in them, and then until whites began to move up this ladder inside of society continuously, finding upward mobility for them, and then they move out, and because the opportunities are for themselves, the resources are provided to them, and once they come out, they move a new wave in the welfare system and project living. No man in the house. And then Jay Finley says, like Clip's mind gone from sniffing dust. Says now he think he's a MK Ultra baby. And then Jay Finley says maturity candidate says stars Denzel Washington. No, I want to read the actual thing because the movie comes from a book that was written by somebody that was part of one of these groups. So the project was headed by Sidney Gatto. Damn, these fool. Damn, where the fuck is this fool parents from? They from Germany too. Man, this motherfucker in these goddamn names getting these jobs. Hungarian Jew. That's over in that same region too. It's over near Germany and all that shit. That's it's in the green. And that's where Hitler was going in there prosecuting all these people. These goddamn names and shit. His older brother was a plant biologist, David got. I'll just call this fool Gallo. I can't pronounce that shit. So that's who this fool is. Parents immigrate over here for this fool to be doing experiments that his uncle and them brought from over in that country. All right, so he ordered CIA director Alan Dulles in April 19. So this is Alan Dulles. I think we brought his name up. One of them shows we did with Brandon. Forget what show we was doing, Brandon, but we brought this dude name up. I remember seeing this dude name. Forgot what topic we was covering. Says his aim was to develop mind. So we ain't got to keep regurgitating this shit. Says its aim was to develop mind controlling drugs for use against the Soviet bloc. So now we go into this Cold War shit. We end the war. The Russians had everything right. Let's punish these damn Germans. America said, no, they're going to help us punish Negroes. And hell, we'll use their experiments to punish you. So this is the stupid side of the Sydney stupid motherfuckers and the people in charge. So I think this during Eisenhower retarded ass time. Says his aim was to develop mind controlling drugs, says for use against Soviet bloc in response to alleged Soviet, Chinese, and North Korean use of mind control techniques on U.S. prisoners of war during the Korean War. Because what they were, and this come from the other thing I was watching from one of the guys speaking on this, is that they were, and the CIA was believing, or American officials was believing, that that when you had Americans captured the Chinese and North Korea during the Korean War, is that a lot of American soldiers were starting to defect. A lot of them didn't want to return to America. They gave up all their information, and then they, in videos, spoke about not wanting to return to America, and end up staying over in China and shit, staying over in North Korea. So they believe it's some mind control shit going over there. So the CIA wanted to use similar methods. Hold on. The CIA wanted to use similar methods on their own captives. Says it was interested in manipulating foreign leaders with such techniques, devising several schemes to drug Fidel Castro. So Fidel Castro was slick with it. Fidel Castro. That's what I be saying when I tell people, like, especially when I tell chicks that be want to bring me food and shit and this and that. I'll be like, man, don't bring me nothing. And I'll be like, I'm like Fidel Castro. They be like, why you like that? I said, I'm like Fidel Castro. Shit, I don't trust nothing. Nobody bring me that. I ain't watching. Or you done brought somewhere? Like, hell no. You know what you did to that shit. So they tried it. And this is what they were doing with Fidel. Fidel was smart and aware. That's why Fidel lived till he was old with an American target on his back. America couldn't touch that fool. So so let's continue on. It says CIA wanted to use similar methods on their own captives and was interested in manipulating foreign leaders with such techniques, devising several schemes to drug Fidel Castro. It often conducted experiments without the subjects knowing knowledge or consent. In some cases, academic researchers were funded through grants from CIA front organizations, but were unaware that CIA was using their work for this purpose. But the universities filed for even conducting that shit on people who are unknowingly taking drugs and being experimented on. Also, this is the other thing where I was saying about this shit where I'm listening to the firefighters in these interviews I watch on 9/11, and they're all speaking this shit about how the attacks of 9/11 were done because these people hate the way we live. And I was like, man, these some ignorant fucking firefighters. And I can understand their anger of having to search the grounds looking for, fellow co-workers. And it's even a selfishness when I listen to them interviews with the firefighters that worked in the cleanup of the 9/11 site, of how they only talk about finding remains of their brothers or their fellow firefighters, but they don't speak nothing about the damn thousands of civilians that died and shit. But even to speak about the actions of those terroristic motherfuckers that act as if they just did it because they hate America. No. This type of shit leads to these people coming over here. Like, you're not about to just fuck with us. We ain't over here developing these programs to research how to drug your people, how to assassinate your fucking leaders. But you coming over here bombing us, fucking with our way of life, and then you have an ignorant ass firefighter who just trained to learn how to put fires, but not fully educated on shit, and just think people from other nations just want to target America. A lot of foreigners would think nothing of America. And then so continuing on. So we got counterintelligence agencies looking to target and kill motherfuckers because they don't like them. We put so many fucked up leaders in power in other countries for them to go over there and treat their citizens like shit. That's the one reason why they hated Fidel, because Fidel kicked Batista whole ass up out of there, who was allowing Americans and other Europeans to go into Cuba and do whatever the fuck they want. All right, continue on. Says the project attempted to produce a perfect truth serum, says, for interrogating suspected Soviet spies during the Cold War, and to explore other possibilities of mind control. The Subproject 54 says was a Navy top secret perfect concussion program, says, which was supposed to use subaural frequency blasts to erase memory. Said the program was never carried out, and that's what I think. One nation was using that shit on some officials in America. Most MK Ultra records were destroyed in 1973 by the order of this whole ass director, who should have been thrown under the fucking prison. Says so it has been difficult for investigators to gain complete understanding of the more than 150 funded research sub projects sponsored by MK Ultra and related CIA programs because of that destruction. So I think that's about all I want to cover on that shit. I think that really covers the gist of it. But I don't go off in the rabbit holes and all this other made up shit. It's just clear with what the intentions of this program is. And it's just fucked up and unfortunate that these sick minded motherfuckers who can give two shits about the American people, talk all this goddamn patriotism shit, don't give a goddamn about the citizens of this country. But the same people they experiment on at the certain level are the same people they send to these wars to fight for the so-called freedom because we have to prevent retaliations for the actions of these motherfuckers for the interests of the financial I don't want to use no elite for the wealthy. Let me see. Experiments on Americans. CIA documents suggest that they investigated chemical, biological, and radiological methods of mind control as part of MK Ultra. So they spend an estimated 10 million or more. It says roughly 87 million adjusted for inflation. Says during the hearing by the Senate Health Subcommittee, says testimony by Deputy Director of the CIA stated that over 30 institutions and universities were involved in the experimentation program of testing drugs on unknowing citizens at all social levels, high and low. So they even did this on rich ass kids. Says Native Americans and foreign. Says several of these tests involve the issuing of LSD to unaware subjects in social situations. And then we wonder why so many dope things out here in American society. Let me see. All right, let me go back in the chat. So that was pretty good. So now I got a clear understanding of what this MK Ultra shit is without having to run down some rabbit hole bullshit and all this other stuff that people like the other work for. That shit works for other people, not for me. I don't go into rabbit hole shit. Shit is what it is. And he says, knowing all this says why would any sane person says they were part of so say where they were part of MK Ultra says, bro, that's not a badge of honor. And he says CJ Stroud's the bum. CJ Stroud's a part of MK Ultra or some shit. And then Jay Finley says Dola says was fired by JFK. Says then they put him in charge of the JFK Warren report. Wow, for real. Maybe that's what we was doing. Maybe was doing the Kennedy assassination when Dola's name come up. There's some foul ass people in the fucking 50s. All these sorry fucking dudes, man. The 50s, World War II is a real turning point of sickness in this country that has always had six-sided shit, especially amongst black folks. Jay Finley says and he got his says then he got his job back. Says motherfuckers are nasty, especially pet owners. Says no way you can eat. Says no way you can eat at their homes. Yeah, I don't be wanting nobody bringing me food, bro. I just don't like that shit. And especially the other shit when that shit used to where I didn't want like if I don't watch a chick cook and all that shit. Because there used to be a time where I used to like this other thing relationship. I used to hate chicks that used to be just like me too fucking much. And out of nowhere. So I used to hear about this shit. This when I was in the army, I used to hear this shit that them bras will put these little wools on you and shit. Put they period blood in your spaghetti and you'll fall in love when you be all this other shit. I think this chick, the one chick, I tell that story about the from that night when I ordered the Floyd fight and then that one broad come out my little USC chick. I think she put some shit on me too. I never ate her food, but I think she put some shit on me. I used to be under like some not a spell, but nigga, I used to be like on some couldn't stay up. It wasn't on some. She was talking about she was pregnant at one time too. I don't think it's from that. They talk about old people talking about if you sleep a lot, you got somebody pregnant. I think that broad put something on me and shit. I definitely think she did that shit. But that's why I be like, I don't be wanting to eat from her. For you don't know what people tamper with food and do shit. And then but yeah, I think that SC chick did that shit. That chick used to love the fuck out of me too. And then Jay Finley says America removes Salam says in that country. That nigga says Salam. He meant Saddam. Says America removes Saddam. America, I think, put Saddam in power too, right? Through the CIA and all that shit. They did put him in power, I think. Says in that country got worse. Yeah, all the countries we went in after September 11th and all that shit. Because that even go back what I'm saying about the firefighters, how they just don't give a fuck about the people that died in the collapse of the damn World Trade Center. And then it goes into how Bush didn't give a fuck about them. He didn't give a fuck about them neither. They went in there and rushed right in with companies to go in there and profit. Blackwater and all these motherfuckers over there and shit. So what's the purpose of the soldiers? Soldiers say, fuck that. I'm about to, my enlistment coming up. I'm getting out of here. I'm about to go get a job with Blackwater. Get all this money as a civilian contractor. Because that's what a lot of soldiers is doing. Especially a soldier ain't about to get out the army, come back to a fucked up economy that Bush fucked around and wrecked the fuck out of. The money was over in fucking Afghanistan and in Iraq, driving trucks and convoys and shit. That's how fucked up these motherfuckers. That's why your fucking election shit is important. Not this old retarded. That past election just showed me how retarded motherfuckers is. No, the first election Trump lost showed me how retarded motherfuckers. No, when he first went in, showed me exactly how retarded motherfuckers in America is. And then they cried. So it showed me back in the 50s and shit of how retarded motherfuckers was and why MK Ultra and all that shit existed. Because the way motherfuckers get to these goddamn election polls and vote for wicked motherfuckers. But this shit with the things that you watch through these fucking diabolical motherfuckers inside of the American system. These greedy, wealthy motherfuckers. You cannot have them running a country. That a motherfucking soldier, greatest benefit is not serving this fucking country, but go out there, play some mercenary shit, work for these companies. Because after 9/11, 9/11 turned into a billion-trillion-dollar fucking scheme. It broke the back of the country, but on the other end, it made all these little people a part of that association of Bush, very wealthy. He broke the back of this country. Taxpayer money, the fuel, feeding the soldiers, all the weapons that cost this and that. But then he'll go in and bring company in there that come back, sell oil into the market. Use the military to fucking control and have free reign over the oil fields. All that other shit. So soldiers over there, Blackwater and all these motherfuckers over there. With greater access to fucking resources than the actual soldiers. The soldiers who fought for the country that went over into Afghanistan, Iraq were barely having resources, lack of protection on vehicles and shit. But then Blackwater and them over there with everything making stupid money. Soldiers still coming back, families on fucking welfare programs and shit. Contract workers are making shitloads of money. There was people who were getting out. There's probably a lot of people even on here that left the military, went over there, got one of them military contractor jobs, and was making buku money, 6 figures, starting in that shit. The fuck your purpose of serving in this motherfucker? When everybody, all this shit is a big old scheme to these wealthy motherfuckers who can start wars, who dictate how wars go. Generals don't get to dictate how shit go on the battlefield. These little punks like Rumfelds, these fools like McNamara during Vietnam telling generals how to fucking go about conducting wars and shit. Because they over there playing the little hustle game and shit. While people are actually dying in combat over stupid ass wars. Should have never went to war over no 9/11 shit. It was some motherfuckers flew a plane. You should have did the damn intelligence work and finding everybody who's involved in that shit. And it should have been a total of about 20 people that America targeted and took the lives of. Not spending 20 fucking years in a pointless ass war. Because it made Bush and them and the rest of these motherfuckers rich. But like I say, people get out to say, fuck that, man. Damn, I'm ready to get my enlistment over. I'm getting out of here. And then I'm quitting the military. And then I'm going to be right back in Iraq and Afghanistan. But you're going to see me working for one of these companies. Because I can't go get out the military and go get a regular American job. I ain't going to make shit. But I'm going to be over here getting hazard duty pay, all this other shit, getting paid meals and all. And I'm about to come back banking. Then a lot of these dudes is coming back buying shit up front, has so much cash. from working in the private side of that shit. Even I remember one time I was on a detail. We was doing this the first time we pulled that what they call Miles gear. We do all that simulated war shit without having to use actual live rounds. We were using laser beams and shit. So you wrap the tanks. Let me show this shit. And it's just laser beam and shit that you can do with actual combat shit. Miles gear for Abrams tank. And so while we doing this shit, lacing these tanks with this gear, let me see. They still use Miles gear? Let me see. I'm gonna show this shit. Let me see if there's a tank wrapped in this shit. Uh, oh, let me see. Miles gear on a tank. Miles gear on a Abrams tank. Let's see if they got one. Damn, they don't show it. But this the box. This is the equipment of it. I see right here. And so when we're going out there, cause we're gonna do this is the first time we did it. It was like one of the few times we went out there. We doing combat related shit. Even matter of fact, when we go to NTC, this shit is on the tanks because you ain't shooting live rounds. So you face the people out there. Matter of fact, my unit, we went out there. I think it was the first. I don't know if they lie about the shit, but I think we was the first ones to beat the Op 4. That first time I went there, Op 4 had always defeated divisions that went out there for like 20 years or some shit like that. And so this is the gear. So this gear goes all around. So you shoot a laser beam, you hit the tank, it'll disable the tank. So it'd be like you done took a fatal strike to the tank. So while we installing this gear around the damn tank, the civilian dude who's overseeing it, because it was Johnson Controller, some shit that ran that shit. This dude didn't do nothing. The contractors be making like the contractors are making stupid money that work for these civilian companies. They show up, civilians show up, the soldiers do everything. Civilians show up, they don't do no work. They sit there like this. Nope, put that there. Nope, nope, that's not how that go. You need to take that down, rule. That's what civilians sit there and do, making stupid money. And I used to be sitting there looking like, man, fuck this shit. Like, man, what the fuck? Because then you always hear the sergeants and all them people talking about how much the civilians is making and shit. And they don't do a fucking thing. They didn't have to. They didn't have to. And they make all this bank because the soldiers in this military ain't shit. That's why a lot of soldiers don't be giving a fuck after a while. When they see how much you looking at how much you getting paid, busting your ass and all that shit. And a lot of the contractors are former soldiers. They even tell people, man, get the fuck out of here and come get one of these jobs. And then Jay Finley says same in Libya, says Syria and more. Says, and then Cal L says there's witchcraft says that witchcraft's real. I was talking about when I was talking about what the chicks putting that blood in spaghetti and shit. Yeah. Doing shit, putting roots on motherfuckers. And then Cal says the CIA says crazy. And I'll be thinking that chick put a root on me because it was that one around that time I was, man, I can just be up talking this and that, and then I'll just be like, they just pass out. Man, we'd be on the game playing. The homie be at the house, she be at the crib too in the room. I'd playing that motherfucking game and just pass out. And they would just wake up like I had narcolepsy or some shit. So the CIA says created Al Qaeda, says another terrorist group, says, and used them for fucking facts, homie. Jay Finley says what sparked the topic? Man, I was listening to Back on Fig, and I heard that fool Kevin McCall was a good interview. It was sad listening to state Kevin McCall in, watch him have a breakdown, speaking about him being on food stamps and all that. And he was speaking about him going crazy. And he brought up that he was MK Ultra. He was in MK Ultra. And I'm like, here go another person using this shit as some bullshit they done read something up, loosely based information, and then they use that anytime they go crazy. Anytime they start using drugs. Like, you weren't part of MK Ultra. You niggas smoke all type of drugs, buy it out on the streets, don't even know what's in it. And then be complaining about what's in the food and shit. Niggas buy drugs off of niggas in the street and then talking about how America trying to kill us. I hear some of the craziest shit from motherfuckers. What's up, CJ? He says, since I watched that Back on Fig shit, Yeah, that shit was sad watching that dude Kevin McCall break down crying and shit. But when I heard him talking about when he was bringing up somebody being crazy, he brought up MK Ultra. I said, let me do this topic and let me dive into looking into this MK Ultra because everybody be all over the place when I hear them use MK Ultra and shit. Or then I ask people to break the shit down. Nobody can break it down. So what better than to look into it? The information's all over here. And then Cal says a lot of these wars is a stage for bigger agendas. The agenda is the bread. The agenda is the bread from these motherfuckers. See, they said, yeah, it says, yeah, I heard them bring that shit up, laugh out loud. Yeah, that's why I had to look into it. I'm like, every time some crazy motherfucker go crazy, here they go blaming the CIA for why they crazy. Like, no, you niggas letting personal life events fuck you up, shatter you, break you down, career related shit, shatter you, break you down, then you start turning to these drugs and shit that you buying from motherfuckers off the streets. And then now drugs is addictive than a motherfucker, and you can't get off of them. Cal says, it says elections are rigged. No, elections aren't rigged, bro. I wish y'all stop believing that stupid shit. Ain't nothing rigged about no elections. Them motherfuckers based on counts. Y'all Trump lovers were voicing that shit when he lost that first time. He came right back in this motherfucker, and nobody's using it was rigged. He won that shit. It's the way the democracy works. And there's certain things that there's powers to that position. Wasn't nothing rigged about Trump. You don't ever hear me using that crybaby. Why I can go ahead and use the same crybaby shit that Trump used when he lost. He ain't lose that shit. They count these motherfucking ballots, and it's based on democracy. We got a lot of stupid motherfuckers in America. As simple as that. It's how MK Ultra is able to go on. Look at it. We got a whole nation of stupid motherfuckers. Let's give them this LSD shit. Give these stupid motherfuckers that. And then Cal says the elites control it all because people are stupid. Picasso says soldiers are sent to take one for the team. In fact, it's fucked up when you look at that shit. Like I say, them motherfuckers, it's pointless almost serving in that shit. When you look up and them civilians over in them damn combat zones making shitloads of money while you dodging bullets and shit, making a fraction of what a motherfucker who was just next to you in a military uniform is making. And then Kyle says the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, the DuPonts, etc. says control it all. And then Jay Finley says I knew people working Afghanistan making 95K a year. It says gassing up vehicles, says and working in the kit. Facts, bro. Fucking facts. Facts. On some real shit. There's a lot of people left here because when they come in America, economy ain't no fucking job. Bush fucking the economy up. They just went right to where them wars is at. That's why them wars went on for so fucking long. That was the longest war America's ever been in. And not only did he fight it in one country, he started two of them motherfuckers. And you best believe them companies in there. I'm pretty sure there's all type of valuable fucking metals all throughout the mountains in fucking Afghanistan. And then all the oil in Iraq. And then Jay Finley says, and look at Afghanistan now. Says it's all left up. They ain't changed a goddamn thing in that damn nation. Trump talking about going back over there because it's probably rare earths in that motherfucker. Jay Finley says, what's NTC? NTC, let me pull that shit up on the map. That shit is a training center for when combat units about to go to fucking. Usually, you if you go in there, your company's more than likely preparing to go to some kind of war. But when we went there wasn't no conflicts going on. There was no combat. It's called the National Training Center. What it is at Fort Irwin. So Fort Irwin is the NTC. Let me pull that shit up. It's right there in the Mojave Desert. So in between California and what's that shit? California and Las Vegas. So if you coming from Vegas and shit, you riding down to 15, you'll see a sign that says Fort Irwin. You exit that shit. What is that? What else is out here? All this shit. So this is where we training at. You come. Wait, where's the 15 freeway? Hold on, let me see. Oh, here go to 15. Yeah, this is the 15 here. And then you'll exit a road. This to get on the gate of the base. So you exit. Where's that road gonna be? up here. Remember Peggy Sue's Diner. So near Peggy Sue's Diner, you can exit there and go all the way up here around these mountains. And that shit sits this mile like 30 miles off the 15. And this is where the entrance on that base is. Way out here in the damn Mojave. But this is where the staging area where you sleep, you just stage here. And you may as your units moving in, you getting all your shit. Forgot they call one the Dust Bowl, and then there's some other shit once you go out to the actual desert. So you staging here where they bring shit in, where the units set up and all that other shit. People who station because it's actually a base for the Op 4, the unit that trains like they're like an enemy force. So there's a base here, so you stage here, get all your shit. We'll ship our tanks out because we railhead all of our tanks. But did we? Yeah, the first year we drew tanks from here. They got old ass tanks, and then the second time I went, we end up shit. I think I've been to NTC 3 times. You out here for 45 days. This is where you sleeping out in the desert. This is where they really training you for fucking war. You talking about not being able to wash your ass for 30 days. This is where you do that shit at. You talking about using baby wipes to wipe your nuts, bird bathing and shit, making little tents so none of these old homo motherfucking soldiers can see you if you taking a asshole naked bath. So we got the tanks. You create them little fucking water jugs and you put the little spigot, control that shit, try to soap up and all that shit to try to get you a quick shower in if you get one. But you may do that shit on day 20th. And mind, when we go out here, it's in the summer in the Mojave fucking desert. But you way out here, and where Death Valley is not far from here. So when we out there, it'd be like it was 120 or some shit like that. And you dressed in that shit. Where's Death Valley at? Death Valley's somewhere over here. So here go Death Valley. So all that heat in Death Valley is not that far. So that's why I be up in the 120s in the middle of the fucking day. You out there in the field, and then it'll drop down to like 80 or 70 degrees. That shit feel like freezing at night. Or no, it might even got colder. I might drop down from 120 a day and drop down to like the 60s of shit at night. But yeah, this is where for the NTC is. So you just training out and all this shit. Training out and all this. And it'd be dangerous. They call that, what they call them shits, waddies, where you gotta watch where you driving them tanks because you can be driving flat land and then a big ass drop. So you be having to watch. You just can't gun that shit. You gun that shit, you'll fuck everybody up in that damn tank. Except yourself and the drivers. Because you hit one of the waddies, be going trying to fly through that damn desert terrain, and they hit a fucking drop. Boom! And you'll spear the front of that slope into the ground. Them people inside that turret gonna probably fuck you up. They'll probably pull a mutiny and jump your ass. But yeah, we be out in all this shit. All this area we were covering the fighting combat training and shit. When they about to go to Iraq, they were training there. As they weren't bringing tanks into Afghanistan, all that shit, they start training even tankers in the other style of combat and shit. Guerrilla warfare and all that shit. I think the type of training they do there now. And then the type of training at Fort Irwin is different from when I went there. And then we're training like how the first Gulf Wars went off. That's what the ideal behind that shit. But once the wars kicked off, how it was fought in Iraq and all that shit, they start training the way that they do the trainings out there now. And the Cal says back then says it was cool. Says it was cool if you joined the military. Says now you finna be sent off to World War III. Because that's the other thing with wars. Everything's changed. All this money shit. Even when you looked at matter of fact, the war Bush kicked off, the shit that was crazy to me when Bush first started, and I was out. I'm at TSA and shit when they first started launching that shock and awe bullshit he did. And then when he brought in the ground forces and to bring in the tanks and all that shit as they rolling in there, because it's nothing. The Iraqis aren't gonna fight the Americans. They didn't fight them the first time. But but no, them fools did put up a fight. But America still went in there. But them fools, all you seen during that shit is, and I was tripping when I seen that shit. Journalists all on tanks. The journalists every goddamn where. The journal, and I was looking at some shit the other day with the speaking about that war, how they was talking about those camera crews everywhere. Where no, this was them talking about when they were hunting for Bin Laden in Afghanistan. They were like fucking. By the time CIA and all them picked up on intel of where Bin Laden could have been, they got camera crews all out there and shit. They got to jump in intel on where he at and shit. Like the war done turned into some old social media shit. Like, and Picasso says Halliburton says Dick Cheney says got 30 million from Bush. Says from Bush Jr. saying it's weapons of mass destruction. Says, but it was oil. Says that's money laundering, stealing, corruption. Says they basically played themselves, aka Trump too. Yeah, that's all they doing. That's why Trump's starting all these fucking wars, going there trying to steal shit from countries. Trump don't give a fuck. And CJ says, I watched that back on Fig shit. And then the cow says, yes, says Dick Cheney says a real life demon. Yeah, a piece of shit. He says, yeah, I heard him bring that shit up, laugh out loud. He says he's talented, says, but dude really crazy as hell. Says he used to live on the homies block, says in Gardena. Says I'm good friends with his sister. Said that's why I be tripping off him acting like he banged laugh out loud. Yeah, he got kid with Eva and shit. He got a kid with Eva fine ass. And I guess she left his ass when he went crazy. Cause I forgot I was always wondering what happened to that dude. He had that deuces because they kept talking about that shit. That shit was a big motherfucking hit. And how they kept bringing it up, it did help put Chris Brown back on and shit. Because I thought a lot of people thought Chris Brown career was over after that Rihanna beating shit came out. After they try to ruin Chris Brown, now look at this nigga. Chris Brown is a motherfucker who is what is that term they use? He's a dude who is not persevering. What's this shit? He's one of these dudes that is resilient as fuck, man. And then Picasso says elections don't have to be rigged. Says America is rigged. Says look at the bigger picture. No, you want to make sure because you get the ability to do whatever fuck you want. It's democracy in these positions of power. That's why you got to find people with a little bit of humanity in them doing this shit. The minute you get one of these sick, wick, trick, twisted motherfuckers, and y'all too busy wanting to talk about homos and fucking what's the other stupid shit you niggas talk about? Immigrants and the border and all this dumb shit. And these motherfuckers con you into buying that's the problem. Is a man that get in here and then you bitches be crying. In the next breath, wonder why you getting fucked over. Companies' doors closing and shit. Cause you'd have been tricked, ho. Motherfuckers in here stupid in America, man. They ought to stop niggas from being able to vote. You should learn you guys should be able to answer some questions to be able to vote in this motherfucker. And the Jay Finley says I was dating this chick, says who later admitted she was putting Benadryl, says in the food, says to keep me from going out because she wanted me home. Shaking my head, says the bitch could kill me, says just because I was clubbing, says trust no one. But it be the crazy side of a bitch for a bitch to really love a motherfucker like that. It's like you got appreciation for a crazy ass broad like that, but then you be like, hell no, nah, them type of bitches will kill you. When I first moved to Vegas, it was one of the cats who he was the homie when I was at Washington. And the other chick, they showed when cause I like watching the news and shit. I'm watching the news. This is when I first moved. Was I living here or was I visiting? No, I might have been. No, I think I was living here. And I turned on the news and they showed the black chick, man. I see in her mugshot, they showed her crime looking like damn, that look like that girl from Washington. I had to go pop open the yearbook. And then the dude she killed, I'm like, wait, that's the nigga. And I knew his name. And I'm looking like, wait, what the fuck, man? This girl was being held for murder. She stabbed that nigga to death. They had just had a baby. And that's the other thing, man. When you have these babies, you got to help with these women, dude. She stabbed that fool because he went out. She got the trip and he went out. She was fucking around with that postpartum shit. And he going out, probably want to celebrate with his boys. You know, dudes be happy they fathers, but don't understand the weird shit these bras be going through. Because these bras be having these little fucking thoughts in their head that kill the baby and shit. Like these bitches be going through some way out crazy psychopathic shit. Why have these bitches be gone? If they don't get that postpartum shit under control, They turn these psychopathic bitches, being there killing their babies and kill your motherfucking ass because they deal with so many hormones and shit. Jay Finley says, and it was tax free. Says working in Afghanistan. Facts. Them contractors working in there was getting that tax free money, and then a lot of people who didn't go there, they start going up in what was the oil sand shit? And people wasn't going over there because American market was dead. This fucking idiotic president fucked this country up. People having to go to war zones to make money, and then they was going up into fucking Idaho. Was it not the the Canada had them oil sands, but I think Idaho is somebody. No, Idaho, Dakota. One of the North Dakota, somebody had that oil shit too. That was booming, and everybody's going up there getting those jobs, but they was working the fuck out of you. People was working 7 days a fucking week. Yeah, a lot of people was going up there to drive trucks to work 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts. I don't want money that fucking bad. But a lot of people, because people want to buy these homes when the real estate market was booming, or did it crash? It was something going on. But a lot of people was making in a year like $200,000 and all that shit, making crazy money doing that shit. And then the price of oil dropped out the motherfucking bottom. And the CJ says Afghanistan has lithium, says in those mountains. Says the shit they make batteries out of. See, that's probably what they was seeing. They looking for them fields up in there. They got major lithium fields in South America. That's probably why Trump starting that shit with Venezuela. They probably got knowledge of some shit down there. Because I think the major lithium producers somewhere in South America. Let me see. Lithium. Let me see. What would I call it? The largest sources of lithium in the world. Let's go in the world. Where are they gonna show? They get this shit is in South America. So they got Bolivia, Chile, Australia. Oh, that's Chile and Bolivia. The largest known lithium reserve is in Chile. And another major source is in Chile, which is, and let me see, let me go to the other list. Let's go in the list of these countries. So Chile, Australia, China, the US has it. Oh, maybe not Venezuela. So US has it, but Chile has a huge ass source of that shit. So that puts them on the map because everybody wants that shit. And matter of fact, I should have put it on the map to show where Chile, because a lot of people don't know their geography and shit. And that's in South America. Hold on, let me zoom out on this map. Bolivia is over in fucking Europe. Wait, yeah, I think Bolivia is in Europe. Yeah. And so here go Chile is along that western coast of South America. So let me see. Let me look at you got Chile with 9.3 what is that tons, metric tons, 9.3 million. I'm assuming that's metric tons. Australia with 7 million, Argentina, so another South American country with 4 million. Is matter of fact, wait a minute. Didn't Trump just give these motherfuckers all that goddamn money? Ain't this the country where Trump just gave these fools that ton of money? Ain't that wait, what country was that? Wasn't that Argentina? The country that's fucking economy falling apart? And then you got the United States with 1.8 and Canada right behind that, following with Zimbabwe. But they can always discover other fields and shit. It's probably way more somewhere than that shit. So those are leaders. Oh, I ain't got to pull the map up. So here it is. So this is Argentina, Chile right next to it, Brazil. Oh, let's see. Now, where's Bolivia at? Hold on. Light that motherfucker up for me. Oh wait, Bolivia ain't on this map. It showed Bolivia was shown on another map, so maybe it ain't Bolivia. So Bolivia ain't on the map. So these three South American countries here, and then the U.S. and then Canada. So, but I remember when fools was going up to that goddamn North Dakota, and working them damn jobs because there's no jobs in this motherfucker. These corporations done fucked everything up. Bush done really started the fucking of America. And then CJ says I wouldn't be surprised says if they go back for says if they go back for some says seeing how they're pushing this EV shit. No, Trump said that nigga Trump said he's sending the troops back into Afghanistan. He's stretching our military so thin that all it's gonna take if he pissed China off him good enough if the motherfuckers come in this bitch invading this motherfucker. We got so many the civilian side of just running military actions and calling Trump got military people going into Portland and all this other shit, wearing the man military thing. You think you gonna be able to recruit motherfuckers? So I wouldn't be surprised Trump talk about bringing the draft back because people ain't enlisting in the military. And then Gabby Sean says that movie 13 Hours says was wild. Says it was about what happened in Benghazi. Oh, is that the little Benghazi? Is that little strike right where they killed those civilians and shit? Oh no, Benghazi is where I think the American people got killed, right? That's the shit got Hillary Clinton in trouble. And then Jay Finley says, quick question, says, what are we doing with Space Force? Says, is there not a lot of information says about their mission? Jay Finley, you think they gonna release what the fuck they doing with Space Force? Everything in that shit about to be top secret shit. Space Force, shit. You think they're gonna about tell the people? Or they gonna let you know they got lasers to shoot shit down? That's about all they can say. But I think they always had that shit. I think that's what they do with the Air Force in LA and shit. The Air Force in LA monitor satellites and shit. And then Trump just renaming shit. That's all he fucking doing. He's a fucking idiot. And then Gabby Sean says they even killed a U.S. ambassador. CJ says he used to bring Eva says to the block all the time. Yeah, I remember I used to have a class with Eva. I just used to know Eva used to be annoying as fuck. That's why the first time I was turning the channel one time and I happened to flip through, I was in the kitchen. We used to have the TV in the kitchen, and I was turning the TV and I walked away and I hear talking, and it was in the scene, I guess over there had people talk, and I just heard Eva's voice. And it made me walk back in the kitchen and look, was like, and mom just getting out the arm. I'm like, wait, damn, I know that ain't that. Her voice used to be noticeable. And I walk in and see, I say, I know that ain't that girl Eva. Like, what the fuck? Her ass blew up. Because they used to be on her. They used to be on Eva ass and she was a ninth grader. And they used to be on her. She had them green eyes and shit. Yeah, that fool ended up cracking her and shit. And then Jay Finley says Chris has that big machine says behind him. Says too many invested in his success. Says granted he is super talented. Wait, who is Chris? Chris who? Oh, Brown. Chris Brown. No, it ain't Chris Brown got a machine. Chris Brown did that shit really kind of. Chris ain't got no machine. Chris is like the complete package as an artist. Chris stage performance is a motherfucker. Chris' ability to turn a song into some shit. The fact that Chris can really blend and cross over, really having a hip hop sound. He showcased that he can rap and shit. Motherfucker just complete. He is like what Michael Jackson would be if he was in this realm of current R&B. He's like what Ursula, why he had success. Genuine had success. The only piece that R. Kelly was missing is that R. Kelly didn't dance on the stage and shit like this fool do. So he gives a complete motherfucking performance. He's just complete artist. That when he stayed resilient and music was the thing he wanted to do, he didn't let the major labels closing the doors on him. That dude stayed with what his vision was, where his passion was with that music shit, kept moving forward, became a blood, and blood walked his way all the way through that motherfucker. And then and he says Ukraine has a lot of lithium. They wasn't on that list. And he says, since Venezuela has a large oil reserves. Yeah, if so, that's he may going at the Venezuela for the oil, but shit, we shifting away from that oil shit. That battery shit, the new lick. But he gave Argentina, I think it was, all that money recently, faking like it was for soy, and it probably ain't. It's probably for this battery shit. And then I know Boxy says Venezuela has a lot of oil. And then Picasso says, I'm sure my cousin says was making peanuts says when he wore his uniform says because he's owned by the United States says, but as a contractor says he made 150K yearly says because that's not the slave contract. Yeah, all them private groups start going in the war zone. BlackRock, all these motherfuckers, they getting the job secure. Imagine the money they was making. You look at people who used to be private fucking soldiers, and you look how they live. When them motherfuckers is coming back to America, cashing out homes, cashing out boats, cashing out vehicles, while the soldiers in there struggling, homie. And then and it shit. One of my homies, he's over there hustling that motherfucker, selling weed in Afghanistan and Iraq. Stealing and slanging back DVDs they done stole out of the motherfucking stores. And he says Argentina is a country. He says Argentina says it's the country Trump gave the money to. Says no country says will ever invade America. Says and when says there's over 400 million firearms in the hands of citizens. I don't think the objective would just be to be able to strike fear. This the thing is even with wars is not to always have to go and win the war. You strike fears. Imagine the psychological damage that look what 9/11 did. And 9/11 is just this is why I be getting on my son ass about grades and shit, because the nigga is just super genius about shit. But even how people talk about it's an attack on the country, it's an attack on America. And when I'm breaking down because I'm always loving to talk about 9/11, he said, well, how was an attack on America when it's just two buildings that got hit? It's like, and it's the truth of it's the truth of that event. Just an attack on a small ass section of New York City. Oh, 16-acre block where the two towers sit and fell, the Pentagon, and they crashed in the field. But the psychological effects of that shit. You ain't gotta go in there and do these long campaigns and wars and shit. You're gonna have to deal with the response of the country. But imagine what it does to the civilians. And be all these guns, people gonna be living in fear. 9/11 had motherfuckers in fear. And those are just airplanes striking two tall ass buildings. We get TSA where it's scary to travel in this country by air. People are afraid to go into places. Bush and made it where people are fearful with all that old fake Al Qaeda shit he brought up. So if a country came here, a country ain't got to come in here and with the objectives of going to some long war, they can go in here and strike it. Same way they try to do with that Pearl Harbor shit, which is just a port. But they got landside and bombed a few things, tore a few things up. Man, please. You gotta have Americans on stuck until generations die off. Like, shit, you gotta go in there and invade this motherfucker. Ain't no need for invasions. You shit. With the range on rockets and rockets and missiles, what the fuck you need to send somebody for? We got all this automated ass shit. Ain't no needing to send boots on the ground and shit. You got countries can hit each other from how far these fucking countries is. Send missiles across the damn ocean. Hell, we sending shit into space. Motherfuckers send some shit into space to fucking orbit the fucking planet. And as it's orbiting, finding this target, come right back down to Earth and go hit some shit. Like, man, this ain't the ways in which these nerdy glasses, MK Ultra scientists, motherfuckers, has advanced research only to find ways of killing people is what's sick. What's sick and dangerous with all this shit is the level they have scaled shit up to just finding ways of pushing buttons and getting rid of motherfuckers. That's why it's crucial for fucking countries to work with one another. Because you ain't got to say people who are outdated and not up on game on the whole military strategy of shit are fooling themselves thinking you're gonna be fearful of some soldier coming in this motherfucker. you're gonna be having to look in the air, hoping some old bullshit ass bomb don't flash through the air because your ass is dead. As soon as you see that motherfucker, you better hope you dead as that motherfucker flashes this light and torches you to ashes and shit. Like this shit is over with, homie. These fools, the way of wars, and we lucky we ain't never seen that shit. But with Trump in there, the threat is up there. The threat and possibility of him fucking with the wrong mighty ass countries to shit to throw some shit over here is there, homie. Yeah, you gotta send a damn motherfucker in a uniform. Unless you coming over to say to surrender to us or some shit. If you ain't there to say surrender, they just keep pushing them damn buttons. These damn bombs stink on their own. That's the problem with all this AI shit coming up. You get all this AI shit, and then devices is thinking on, like even the cars. The cars stink on their fucking own. This is why I was tripping watching the self driving car the other day. On going to my kid's game, it was people in that car, and that car was stinking on the fly, like in traffic, shifting, knowing to make safe shifts, and then coming to a stop sign, knowing not to just turn out, seeing a car from a distance coming, the cameras is feeding all this. Man, come on. Even the airplanes do that shit. Airplanes fly their goddamn selves now. And then our boxer says, are you saying you wouldn't want to survive a nuke? Hell no. Hell, I don't think people really get the dangers of that shit. Like, man, to get even in hearing like regular artillery bombs go off, them motherfuckers is loud. Or just hearing the bitches humming over the top of your head and then hitting the target and blowing up, or hearing the sound. That shit is loud and nowhere compared to where a bomb would do. And then destruction of a nuke. I don't even think watching the videos of nuclear tests give you the ideal of how devastating them shits are. And those is the old atomic bombs. These motherfuckers now to probably blow Los Angeles the fuck up. Now there ain't no telling what these scientists people have advanced, the yield on them bombs and shit, how powerful these bombs is. They ain't fucking around and blow up a whole goddamn country with some of this shit. And the fact they sitting in labs labs working on that shit is crazy. And then our boxer says they say if you put on an aluminum jacket, it says it'll protect you, so it'll protect you from the blast. No, it won't. No, it won't. You can survive the heat. They say certain things can stop the little radio waves that fucking fry your cells from may not penetrate. But I doubt if it's some aluminum and shit. That's why if you go look at them Chernobyl fucking documentaries. And he says Donald Boxer says you should do a show says about how powerful nukes are. That shit top secret. The only thing you don't get is them old 1960 atomic experiments and shit. The shit now they probably ain't putting out what the power on that shit. But you go look at Chernobyl and you look at what was happening with the because that's the thing with Russia. Russia bombing that Chernobyl plant and shit. But you look at when they was doing that recovery effort, and they showed some of the people that went in there and stayed like I think in 90 seconds, they was dead. Man, them say the motherfuckers went in there, when it first happened, was going in there trying to pour shit into that hole and got exposure too long for like a minute. Them fools died so fast from cancer. Then that's why they evacuate that whole town. It's that radioactive shit. Nuclear bombs is crazy and some dangerous shit. Even the one that hit Japan, them fools is dying of all that radiation poisoning and shit. Just eating your cells up. Your body can't even repair itself. And then it says when you was in the military, it said did you ever see a nuclear blast? Hell no. Nah. And you probably can get a person serving the military to lie and say, yeah, they seen some shit like that. Everybody in the military don't see the same shit. You don't see the same shit. You don't know what the hell is going on in the military. Just like when I hear people, you know, hear these stories about CIA programs and think everybody in the CIA part of it, and they not. Like you're not. You don't know what they have. So many departments, so many. You part of this and that. Like hell no, you will never see a nuke. They don't test nukes. They don't test nukes. So no, you'll never see that shit. And Hell nah. I wish I could see a damn nuclear blast. And he says what says the new says was a nuke blast, says what got your forehead, says enlarged like that. It fool got jokes. But hell no, I wish I could see like the top secret videos on that shit. But America was filed. America, Britain filed, making soldiers go out there when after they detonate one of them bombs and shit and wear those glasses. Then a bunch of them fools end up catching cancer and shit. The America, all these nations, man, because they have the scientists who want to research shit. You may have the scientists develop some bomb before some other country get it to stay ahead of them. Then you test that shit and want to see the effects on motherfuckers. Like, we don't give a fuck about you. You fucking expendable to us. We this so expendable motherfucking die off. We'll hide the evidence, never pay their families benefits for their death, and then we'll get a whole new recruitment class. We finished that damn experiment program. We got the results. We never had to do it again. And he says, says I'm just trying to joke with you. Says I need I need my laugh. Says here at work. Oh yeah, yeah. But no, on these topics, man, I'll be keeping them shits funky. I keep them shits funky. My humor die off. But that's all I got on this one, folks. I'm gonna catch you on the next one. I just wanted to cover this one, and and that's it, man. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out, God damn it.